feel good. And they said, you know, you don't know what we can do. Far too often we are too low in our expectations about what youth exchange students can do, interactors, rotaractors, because we have not given them the opportunity. And they can do bigger things than many Rotary clubs can do. So that's what they told us. And the GSE team from 2450, the lower right is Governor Michael Drake from 5500. Where are you, Michael? There he is. Michael and Governor Kusama became friends, and they determined that they were going to do a group study exchange. Michael and I have been around our district for a long time, and in our judgment, there was no finer team that we ever received, ever, than this team that you sent us. Now, why do we say that? Because they were interested in us. They weren't thinking about themselves, they were always interested in other people. And it showed day after day after day. They got involved in service activities because that's what they came to do. They pitched in and joined with us. And you can see the flags of the countries that were represented. And their presentations, even though they only spent one day together, our team spent 3 months and they never got it together very well. But your team spent one day together and their presentation was seamless. It was impressive. So thank you very much for your gift. And maybe most important of all, they changed a lot of attitudes in Arizona about the Middle East and about people from the Middle East. And when I was asked to speak on Rotary in the Middle East at the Institute in California, and it was there was a beautiful Freudian expression in the title because they had a couple of young people who were not in Rotary and then leave the Rotarian. So they had opportunities for peace within Rotary and outside of Rotary. So I picked up on this peace within Rotary, and this is a new generation story. In our experience in working with the Jordanians and Governor Al-Attasi in starting the club, these are some of the things we experienced from the Israelis in District 2490. They discouraged me from starting a club. They said they're not ready in Palestine. Oh, by the way, Palestine does not exist. The people in Ramallah are not ready for Rotary, maybe RCC. But during the charter ceremony, 10 members of the Rotary Club of Jerusalem came for that charter ceremony. And the executive committee from Ramallah said, you know, we ought to reciprocate. We ought to go over the next night for the charter ceremony in Jerusalem. But the paratroopers during the night came down on that Turkish ship, and they felt that they really could not go. In Montreal, when the flag from Palestine was brought in and the announcer said the flag of the Palestinian Authority, it was the longest sustained applause, standing applause, that I had experienced in 17 conventions. After the first plenary session, my Israeli friends came up and jumped all over me for dragging politics into Rotary. And I couldn't figure it out because we didn't say Palestine, we said the flag of the Palestinian Authority. And then we figured that just bringing in that flag was a political statement. And then in New Orleans, we were invited to a reception for an incoming director. And we were told, and these are high-level Israeli Rotarians. We were told that the Ramallah Club no longer exists. They don't meet, they don't have a website, and they can't do matching grants because they have no money, and they can't have Christians in the club because the Muslims will drive them out. Okay. Now, that on one hand, those are the attitudes. Not all Israeli Rotarians. Let me make that clear. But there are some, maybe many, who have these attitudes. Okay, you have that on one hand, and on the other hand, as you know, the Arab countries have a moratorium on doing any organizational collaboration with Israeli organizations until the settlements stop and are resolved. And that's a peaceful stand, a peaceful protest, and I understand it. But look at this situation. You've got a standoff here among Rotarians. When I talked to, let's see, when I gave this talk in Houston, a young guy came up afterwards, big smile on his face, and he said, I want to talk to you. I'm going to be an ambassadorial scholar to Israel. And I looked at him and I said to myself, why are we spending $24,000 to send a young Jewish kid to Israel as an ambassadorial scholar? But I spent an hour and a half talking with him afterwards, gave him contacts in Jerusalem, gave him contacts with the Rotary Club of Ramallah, and he followed through. He went as a program presenter on ambassadorial scholars. He went back to do a banner exchange. And the Ramallah Club liked this young man because he had a simplicity about him, and he said to them, I never knew what Palestinian people have been going through. Okay? So now, I don't have to tell the Israeli Rotarians that the Ramallah Club meets in a 5-star hotel, that they've got 28 projects either underway or on the planning board, that they've started a new Rotaract Club, that they are engaged in community service, that they meet every week because we now have Taylor Wilson. And by the way, he went on an olive harvest up in the northern part of the West Bank, and is now connecting with Rotaract in Jordan, thanks to Ihab. So I'd like to wrap this up and return to this scene, because these are your people telling us how they feel. They love Rotary, they know Rotary, but they don't know us. They want to be our friends and partners, our friends and partners, and they want us to understand that there are no limits to what they can achieve. The challenge and the question for you, if you believe that the Fifth Avenue service is really a new beginning, how do we change our attitudes and our behaviors? We want to hear from you about that. Thank you.
Wasn't he wonderful? As you
always.
It was quite enlightening, it was quite inspiring, but I will have two questions for you. And this question number one is to the men in this room and not the ladies. How many Rotarians or Rotaractors under the age of 40 are in this room? I said I'm not asking the ladies because all the ladies are under 40. I know that all of you in your heart are less than 40.
Did you say 140?
But if we get out of Phil, from my point of view, with two things. We are not connecting to District 2450 young generation. We in our clubs, we know that we have a Rotary club, we have an Interact club, there is a Ride chairman, but how many of us get involved really in their events? Why don't we call them in our conferences to be sitting with us and speaking to us and learning from them and hearing them, not telling them what to do? I would ask our incoming governor, please, let's put it in action, what Phil has said. Secondly, the Rotary Club of Ramallah. We are 174 clubs in this district. How many of these clubs are in contact with the Rotary Club of Ramallah, working with them, helping them, and putting them in our district, not as a name, while we are clapping in our conference, we are proud to be having the Rotary Club of Ramallah, or when we see the flag of the convention. What did we do to the Rotary Club of Ramallah? I wish all of you start working with them. President Gallian has asked me to extend an invitation to all of you that on the 17th of June in Istanbul is having a water management presidential conference, a one-day conference for all the country in this area to come together, to work together. Let's have a common goal. Water is a problem in Jordan as much as it's a problem in Egypt, as everywhere. Let's have a joint goal together and let's work together in that aspect. 17th of June, Istanbul. Our next speaker is the man, is the new generation district chair, district committee chair. Fikri Abdeshafi is of the Rotary Club of Gezira Sporting. He has been a Rotary member since 1998. I've been board director and a committee chair in his club, and the president of his club in the year 2000-2001. And he's now the new generation District 2450 committee chair. He's an electrical engineer, the general manager of Honeywell Middle East from 69 to 2000, a chairman of diversified group of companies in FMCG, IT and software development. He's the vice chairman of the Chamber of Chemical Industries. He is of industry chairman of the National Project of Reform and the Technical and Vocational Education and Training System, KEMAT. He's married to Agat, July 1970. He have 4 daughters, Rada, Angie, Nancy, and Amira, and 3 grandchildren, Fikri and Zaina and Hannah, and I'm calling the grandchild Fikri.
To come after Phil Silver is really a challenge, because nobody, I believe, can be able to do anything more than what he said regarding this new Fifth Avenue of service for Rotary. But maybe what I can do is just elaborate a little bit of the new generations in our own district, which is very diversified, but I believe has a lot of commonalities between the different countries in a sense. Of course there will be differences, but they will not be parallel. January 2011, the so-called Arab Spring caught all of us by surprise. In a sense, the youth in Tunisia, or the younger generation, led the situation, and that was the beginning. In 20 days, they did what we all now know as history. In Egypt, it took 4 days to change 30 years of a very strong established regime, and therefore it became very evident to us in this 2450 district that we need to do something very, very quickly and move forward a little bit faster than the general policies and procedures of Rotary and what they want to do, because if we are not going to be much faster in this region, then probably we will be too late. Demographies, any number here is just a best guess. You know, there isn't any real figures. There are a lot of different figures that can be thrown on the table, but in Egypt at least, and in many of the Arab worlds, the youth under 25 years of age are over 40% of the population. Generally, we do not have the problem that the Western governments and the more advanced countries have, which is too little young people and too much older people. But that has to do with the country. It doesn't have to do with Rotary, because in Rotary we have a completely different picture. Before I come to that, I would like to just make two very quick things about the new generations. They are a smaller but very active group. They are motivated differently than all of their parents and the older generation. They are loyal to the professions and not to the employees, and quality buys quantity of their time, and they work smarter using all the new technology gadgets, and they use the technology and do things much faster than we are accustomed to do, and have a horrendous amount of ideas which they try, and they will always challenge the status quo. So if we told them this is how we do the things in a Rotary club, and you want to bring in the newer, younger generations, they will always question what you are telling them. In addition, the new generations have a different issue also, which is women in new generation. Because the younger generation women are almost 50% of the population, and they are here to stay, because in the majority of colleges and in the majority of schools, they are now leading their schools and schoolmates, and they are doing much more better than the boys. And now, in the Arab world and in our region, many of them are now going up into the higher managerial levels and taking their rightful place in the workplace. They are participating in the most occasions. Many of them are becoming influential in their community, and they are becoming more, as we can see, like Merkel in Germany and in other places, women are now leading, and they are compassion much more compassion towards the need of others, so they can give us a little bit, and they definitely demand equal opportunity. They will no longer accept playing second fiddle to the men around. This brings us back to District 2450 challenges, what we are facing. One, as I said, we have an issue with our countries. A lot of the people are under the age of 25, but in our Rotary clubs, and that's another very rough figure, the majority of our members are in their high 50s and early 60s. So that's a challenge, because the more we are getting older, the more we can do service. And the average age of our clubs, unless we do something about it, will continue to increase and affect the ability of the clubs to perform the most essential part of Rotary, which is service. And the younger generation, whether new fresh members or those coming from other Rotary clubs, are in their 30s, and they find it very hard to communicate with the original club members. But unfortunately also this is a scissor effect, because the original club members find it very hard to communicate with the newer generation that's coming into the clubs. Therefore, this is a few ideas that I'm throwing to the floor and to the governors and to the leaders about what the new generation committee will do. So, first of all, we are one of very few regions that has a new generation committee. I think we are the 5th or something, 5th, but can maybe confirm that. It's somewhere into the 4th, 5th, 6th or something like that. But what this committee will do, or will try to do, is work closely with the clubs that have active Rotary Act clubs to encourage those reaching 30 years to join the mother or other clubs, not necessarily their own mother club, but other clubs. And I have mentioned here in groups of 5 or 10, because an individual Rotary actor joining a club with an average age about the 50s, or even 2 of them, will find it very hard to interact, as I said in a previous slide, and therefore the probability that they will not continue and then we lose them is going to be very high. I am using the terminology of established new generation clubs at appropriate location for the younger generations, so that the club founders, I'm not going to use, as Muhammad mentioned now, there is a resolution not to use the term new generation in chartering clubs. But that doesn't mean we cannot charter clubs in a new generation form. They can have a Rotary name, as Muhammad said, and in the recommendation on which the committee was based is that the age of that club, the founders should be between 30 and 40, with a maximum of 10% of the number to be of a slightly more upper age, to help in the formation of the club, coming from the original club that will sponsor it, etc. And the other thing is new generation, 5th avenue of service. Until it sinks in to the Rotary clubs, everybody is speaking of vocational. I have exceeded my time, so I'll go.